You're listening to a Lost in the Groove segment.
Having good vibes with your bones and joints. Taking a trip into the groove. American groove into stoner world. Gonna
And a few years ago, this is somebody that I knew in Israel. No names given. And she was fooling around with her best friend's boyfriend. And she had this whole thing figured out. They eventually broke up. I mean, she started going after this best friend and started dating him. And they became like inseparable. And it was as if no one remembered that her best friend was married to somebody else. And it always baffled me. It's like this person went after this person. Everybody knows this. Everybody knows what she's doing is wrong. Everybody knows. And then they decide to break it off. It's strange the stories that people will tell you, especially when you start to get to know them better. Because not only do you have a clearer understanding of who they are, but who they are perceived and portrayed by the people around them, like, their exes, their family members and friends.
What it is that he's like kind of...
We're recording, by the way, just letting you know.
Yeah, this person that
FYI.
I know is kind of stuck in like a sympathetic like lock hold is what I see. Is that like, they're kind of like in this like, yeah, just like sympathy and feeling bad for someone has got them like locked in to something that they don't really want to be doing.
No.
Is kind of what I see.
It's really weird when you have people that they get into these odd relationships. It's not anything for us to understand because they're the ones that are going through it. But when it happens, you have to ask yourself, what happened? How did it get that way? Where did this start? Why did it take so long? You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
There's so many questions you start asking. You're like, is this really real?
I'm definitely still like mind blown. Like, I don't know. Of course, my microphone is falling over again. I don't know. I really wanted to make a podcast today, Like, I really, really wanted it.
Doesn't look like it's happening.
Fuck everything, dude. Like, seriously. Like, what is this? Like, I can't. Like,
Wait.
why? Like, why is this happening? Like, the cardboard worked great. And then all of a sudden, it's not working anymore. And I didn't touch anything. I touched nothing over there, but something changed. Why?
It's very possible it could be the oils in the desk. One thing I have with my desk is painted. Sometimes, especially when you varnish or stain woods, you'll put on oils to preserve the wood, really to show the finish and the grain. And a lot of those times, those oils can cause the surface to be very slippery. But yeah, this is basically podcasting DIY in the making. It's very cut and dry, very straightforward. It's weird.
It's because I'm in a different location.
Yeah, we'll get used to this, honey. It takes time.
I'm in a different space. I'm not in my comfort zone, like, at all. Yeah, I am.
This is, by the way, a great example of like just cross. I guess is it cross thinking or maybe cross perspective of like, what did I do? Why am I here? Why is this happening?
I don't feel like what did I do? Why am I here? Why is this happening? I feel more like I thought a whole bunch of things that weren't what I thought. Like that's kind of more I'm like now I'm like, wait, like is what I thought still like true or is all that gone and now there's like a new reality? Or is that also reality and we're adding more reality to it? Like I don't know yet. So I'm just kind of like, yeah, I guess. Yeah, what did we say yesterday? Just too good to be true.
Amen, sister.
Like that was what we said. We were like, all seems a little too good to be true, huh? And then it was like too good to be true because it
Well,
wasn't true.
that's what that's with a lot. Trust me, it's with a lot of things. Like we talked about this. I got a different car. I drive a Mustang. And I was driving a RAV4 before. There are things now that I realize, things that I do miss from my older car, but there are things that I love and I enjoy so much more with what I have now. It's a learning curve and a growth. You learn to take the stuff that you hate and take the stuff that you love. But there's a line, isn't there? I feel that there is. There really is. Should be a line.
It's interesting because it feels like quite a lot to deal with at the beginning of getting to know someone. Like it's like, wow, like, I mean, we're still just getting to know each other, so you didn't really need to tell me like all this personal stuff. But then it's like, oh, yeah, I kind of did need to know like some personal stuff. So I'm a little torn about it. I think it'll be okay. If anything, I feel like it gets us to like know each other like on a more like serious level. When
Yeah.
I took my communications class, I learned about relational transgressions, which is where like when people deal with conflicts, they either become closer or they go apart. So, conflict will often, if handled correctly, bring people closer together. So, I think it's possible, but like, I think as a woman, I have always just like been concerned and like watch out for myself and stuff like that. So, like, there's these kind of like, alarms that go off where it's just like, man, don't get yourself involved in anything weird, like and then it's like
I think it all
I
depends on.
I had a
I think
hard time in my last relationship, and so like I
I
don't
know.
100% trust my own judgment. Like I do, but like I almost try to stay more careful than what I think careful should be so that
That
I'm like extra careful,
well, that's why we have this ideology and thought process of open communication. The thing is, it's sometimes hard to accept where your significant other or somebody that's close to you will tell you that yes, they once worked in the porn industry. Yes, they
Yeah, it's kinda
once.
like that. It's like, "By the way, I screwed a bunch of people on a an internet site." And you're like, "Oh."
Everybody has their story, and sometimes in life you run into situations that maybe not the greatest, but you run into them, and keeping those things secretive sometimes I feel can eat people alive. It does. It eats you alive.
That was, like, the one thing that was, like I mean, I could tell that it was, like, eating him alive, and, like, the sincerity in, like, the way that he told me definitely made like a big difference. Like, you know, it wasn't like, this
Love
is what
that.
I'm doing. You know, it was like, I mean, it genuinely difficult for him. Like I could tell, you know, and
Somebody that can open themselves up to another person that genuinely, it shows not only a sense of true character, but it also shows that you don't have anything to hide. You're here to be here, to do this. And I think that's something that gets lost a lot of times in relationships. You need to be open with your friends, especially when you're in relationships.
and for someone to think that you're important enough to like
Yeah,
take the time to like, you know, sit you down and like tell you something like that. I
right.
like if I wasn't important, I'm sure the person would just like keep doing whatever they're doing and find no reason to like tell me or anything like that.
But
And
you're
so
important
that
to them. That's important.
made a difference, you know, but at
Yeah.
the same time, like I've gotten myself into something different than what I got myself into. And that is kind of the only thing that bothers me about it. Well, there's a couple other things that bother me about it, but like that one is like, you know, to think that something is something that it's not and then find out, you know, that it's not is kind of like you know, you feel stupid. Like I know that I'm not stupid and I know that it has nothing to do with my intelligence or anything like that, but it feels kind of stupid. Like I don't know.
It feels that you've been overturned, basically one step ahead of you. Why didn't I realize this from the beginning? The thing about people is we learn from each other when we start to talk to one another and we start to tell each other things. It's so hard to be able to look at one person and look them up and down, and like, okay, because of this line and this, just ask them, you know? That's just my perspective.
Just something I didn't want to deal with, to be honest. You
It's nothing
know,
that anybody wants to deal with, honey. Nobody wants to deal with that. Oh, okay. The okay is, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just something you have to deal with when you run into it, right?
the oh, okay. I'm trying to think like if I've ever done that to somebody. You know, I mean, I can't think of anything like right off the bat where it's like, hey, there's something I need to tell you before like this starts to get serious. Like, I
Oh,
can't,
okay. Yeah, see?
yeah. And then you're like, oh, okay. You know, but like the interesting thing is that no one will tell you until it starts to get serious because there was no reason for you to know before, you
Right,
know? So,
obviously.
like, and now it's like, well, it's moved, you know, forward, so now is the time to say something, and then that's when it's like, ah, oh, okay. You know, but like I think I don't get the feeling that the person didn't tell me because they were afraid that I wouldn't like them, you know, that way.
I don't think so
Like
either. No.
I didn't get that feeling. I don't know. I didn't get any of the bad feelings
I mean,
really.
the way you explained the story to me too, it didn't sound that way.
No, I know. I think it was just like,
Hey, it's Dave, and I quickly just wanted to jump in and say if you've been enjoying the podcast, I'm enjoying this episode, if you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, that'll be so greatly appreciated. Because here's the thing, someone might read that review and make the choice if they want to listen to the podcast. You get to help grow this podcast with us. How fucking cool is that? Let's jump back to today's episode.
really, really uncomfortable for him to talk about. And I kind of get it. Like, I do, but it still is concerning. But at the same time, like, kind of makes things like more real, you know, because it is real. It's reality. I don't
It's
know.
inter- it's
Absolutely weird
do you
though.
know what
Like,
do you know what's so funny when you because like we have our favorite like movies and shit. Whenever they depict the oh okay moment in TV, or like our favorite movies and shit, it's always so like overdrawn and dramatic. You could hear it in the sound, you can hear it in like the way that they're talking to each other. Do you maybe feel like maybe that's the reason why we sometimes feel overwhelmed by it because that's what we're been shown for so long? When in reality, it could be something that we could deal with. We just have to figure it out, which is, you know.
well, I think that like the first thing that comes to mind is like similar stories. Like if somebody were to tell you, like, hey, like I know we've been, this is not what happened, but I know we've been, talking for like a week or two, and like I need to tell you that I have herpes, like that kind of thing. I mean, it happens. And I'm sure like it's really hard to tell the other person. And then like it's really hard to find out if it's okay. And it's also a really hard like place for somebody to be like, yes, it's okay. No, it's not. Like it's hard. Like that. I mean, that's like a scenario that comes to mind for an oh okay moment, but it also like it gives the other person an opportunity to be like accepting of you,
Right.
and then it's like, like, oh hey, I worked in a whole bunch of porn. Oh, okay. I still love you. Like
Do you
it's
feel
like
that?
that doesn't change what happened here. Like it doesn't change how I got to know you. It doesn't change any of those things. Like, like I know who you are, like
Is it a
more or less.
Is it a compatibility test? I feel.
It's a relational transgression. I mean, it's a thing where it either works or it doesn't. But is it
But it's a compatibility because you're asking the person if they're capable of accepting you or working with you with this situation, right? Isn't that in a
yeah.
way a compatibility test?
Well, I always have a hard time, like, I mean, I'm very open on my podcast about things that I
Oh
might
yeah, we
not
just
even be.
spent 17 minutes talking about relationships. Oh yeah.
But I mean, for instance, like, I'm really open on my podcast about things that I might not even be open with people that I know. Like, it's easier for me to talk to like this audience, and it's always easy for me to tell you everything. So like, I
Aw,
think
thank
that
you.
you get a lot of like info about like my feelings and my thoughts and different things like that, and then it goes on to the podcast because like I'm used to talking to you about personal things, and like I don't mind that my personal for extent, I don't mind that my personal things are on the podcast. Like for me, I always have to decide if I'm going to tell somebody that I have an eating disorder or not, and it's a really really hard thing to figure out. Like I don't know if I'm supposed to tell them right away, or I don't know if I'm supposed to act like it's not a problem. The other thing is that like my eating disorder is very off and on. And then the other thing is that my eating disorder changes when the people around me know about it or not. And like all those things are just really, really hard for me to navigate. Like
Right. Which is
it's,
understandable.
I just don't know how to deal with it until I have to deal with it. And so like I kind of understand it to an extent, but then I was like, "Oh god, do I tell him, about it?" And I'm like, "No." Like I just because I don't know. Like I've prayed my eating disorder away like multiple times. Like
I know.
I,
I
like
remember.
I've prayed it away to the point where I'm like, "You're not here anymore." And sometimes it works. And sometimes I'll have like long spans of time where I'm just perfectly fine. I eat like a regular human, like everything's fine. But there'll be just like moments where it's not okay. And that's when I end up like having to tell somebody. I think what would be really nice is if like the person just like noticed without me having to like say it. But, I mean that's way too ideal, right?
Oh my god, 100%. And it it's
I don't
something
know. I
it,
don't want to be
it
viewed that way. Like I don't.
and no, no, no,
Yeah,
you definitely touched on something that is so important, where I can admit this. I have an eating disorder, and I definitely have it where it's on and off. And I have a learning disability, and I suffer from severe anxiety and depression and PTSD. But I don't let that be my obstacle. I still work on this podcast. I still do the music that I do, and I still do what I have to do, being able to work with it. But when you're dealing with a relationship, when you're going to be with another person, it's important for them to know this. Person for them to understand what kind of person I am. To see that, are we looking for the same things, or is this what we both want? That was my
yeah.
thought.
Wow. I don't. I mean, fuck. I'm a little baffled. Like, and my therapist used to say, you don't have to tell anyone things that you don't want to. Like, obviously, like, I've been like sexually assaulted in different ways. And after that happened, I felt like if I was going to be like intimate with a person, I would have to tell them that that happened to me. And she was like, "No, you don't." And I was like, "Oh, I don't?" you know? Like, I don't know. I just felt like I would like have to. Like if I was going to sleep with someone else, they'd have to know that I'd been through that. And she was like, "Well, you don't have to, but like if it's something that you want to talk to them about, you can." But like I did, I felt like I had to like tell this new person about like all my baggage like real fast. And that was something that she got me out of doing maybe when I was like 21. She like convinced me like you don't have to tell everyone
Is
the
this the
bad things
same?
about you.
Is this the
Uh
same therapist?
this was Rachel. She was my very first therapist when I was still in Iowa. So no.
Alive?
No. Yeah, Joan told me a lot of similar things, but that I got from
I
my
I
first
don't
therapist.
I don't like that ideology. It's just
It's a privacy. Like you can allow yourself to have things that are just yours.
oh,
Like
definitely.
the
But
other person doesn't have to know everything.
okay, but for example, if you had a kid with somebody, 15 years ago, and you that situation that you're no longer a part of, and now you're in a relationship with this person, you've been dating them for a year, let's just say, okay, and you're getting really
You tell
serious.
them before a year that you had a kid with someone else and the kid is like out in the world. I always felt like my ex probably did that he like knocked up some girl and then just like left and like I don't
Oh
know.
my
Like
god.
I wouldn't put it past him. Like,
Damn.
and there's
That's
probably a
cold, honey.
lot. Dude, he sucks. He's so bad. Like anything
S-
that somebody can do to be shitty, he's totally capable of. So like that's a shitty thing that guys do. He could totally do it. But I just feel like there's probably a ton of guys that have like gotten a girl pregnant, disappeared, and just completely start over and feel absolutely no need to tell anybody that they've had a child before, you
I
know?
love I love where the past 24 minutes have been going. We're going from like relationships, we're like, oh, okay, situations, and now where we're men, they get up into their, ranchero, all right? They bang up a girl and they drive off into the sunset.
I mean, like I have I know people who would be like that kid, because I know multiple people who like their dad just like drove away, and like that's an example of
In
like
a
a
ranchero
person who has a
or in an
kid
El Dorado.
somewhere. And you wonder, like, are they gonna say anything to the new person?
No.
You know? Yeah. But it's like for that person who tells the person or not, how much do you want to be accepted? You know, like if I had had a child with somebody, or let's say I had a child and I gave it up for adoption like 10 years ago, you know, or something like that. I haven't done that, but like what if I had? Like
Or
I
haven't
don't
you? Da, da, da.
totally have to tell like a person that I'm dating that that has happened.
No, not
But
necessarily.
I feel
Okay.
like if we were planning on having children, it might be important to tell him that I've given birth before. You know, like how weird would it be to like pretend through the whole time that like I've never been pregnant ever? Like that would almost be impossible to like just act like this is the first time this has ever happened. Like, you know?
Yeah, I 100%. But that was my point. What I was trying to make is yes, there are definitely secrets you can keep in a relationship,
You
but
can, but like do you want
this
the
is
other person to understand and
I
support you?
I can't imagine. If we're talking in regards to a heterosexual relationship, if you have a woman that is in this relationship with a man, and
It
this
doesn't have to be
guy,
heterosexual, but yeah.
I'm giving that as an example for a very particular reason, where if you have this guy that he knocks up another girl and he never tells his wife, and in this scenario he does, he's dating this person and he tells her, and she's like, okay, she understands the situation, understands that it was a mistake, he was a teenager, and so on, and they move on. But I feel that there's a deeper connection that has been built in that relationship. Can you imagine if somebody's like, well, your husband is a scum and whatever. She's like, well, if he's this, she's thinking in her head, well, he's told me that. I mean, how could it be? You know what happens? Like, blah. I'm just bumbling, jumbling, but you get where I'm coming from. There,
That it makes
it's
the people closer.
yeah, and you have a better trust and bond with the person too.
Yeah, I think it does create like some type of like bonding, but like I think that it takes energy, you know, and I feel just like slightly drained by like processing everything. Like I'm just like
Do you want to start talking about like bananas or some random shit?
I love talking about bananas.
Oh my
I
god.
was watching the Minions yesterday, and is one of the Minions movies like set in the 1960s?
Yes.
Yeah, what is that? I was like, why are the Minions in the 60s? Did they time travel, or like how did that happen?
I think it's because it was when Gru was a kid or something. I think that was Despicable Me
Eh.
2 or maybe 3. I think there's like 4. I can't keep track of
I need
all
to
the
watch the
movie.
one that's in the 60s though. Like they were like found these overalls and they were like trying on like all this
Oh,
like
that's the
stupid
one where they
hippie
do King
clothes.
Bob. King Bob.
And
Yeah.
so the one was like walking and he like saw like a lady that had on a dress and it had like bananas on it and he's like banana.
Eso no ya. Banana.
Banana. Yeah,
Banana.
I think that the Minions are probably one of the best creations because they're just like silly and fun and they don't really make full sentences or anything and they don't
It's
even
just
speak like
pure
a language.
it's just gibberish. It's just pure utter gibberish.
I like the way that the Minions talk.
They're
Bananas.
they're just like these weird it's so weird because we've changed so much like since that movie has come out, just culture and just the whole world around us, that like now you think to ourselves like, who in their right mind today in 2023 sitting down right now and thinking we should make another Despicable Me movie?
Wait, when was the last Despicable Me movie?
I think like a year or two ago.
Oh, see, they have made one since the world
But
changed.
I know, but it's just I always have such a hard time, especially when they make these animation films and they make just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9. Like, hello, I think there like reaches a point where you just how many how many films are you going to make? It's like Toy Story. It's like, listen, okay, I'm old enough to remember when Toy Story 3 came out. Okay? I remember Toy Story and Toy Story 2 when I was a kid because they came out in the 90s. And then there's Toy Story 4. But wait.
Jesus Christ. I saw Toy Story 1 in theaters. Okay, just so...
I wasn't born yet.
Yeah, okay, go on.
But like, then there's going to be Toy Story 5. Like, hello, how many versions of movies do you need to make? Look, I get it. Like, it's a great franchise, but...
Well, they changed the characters so much that it doesn't even feel like the same movie anymore. Like,
with Toy
the Woody
Story
that was in, you know, the first Toy Story is not the same Woody that would be in a Toy Story movie now. They've changed him so much. His personality, everything about that Woody. Buzz, I mean, Buzz is a completely different character. Like, totally different person completely.
Can you imagine Tim Allen? Is it Tim Allen?
I don't know, but I always liked Buzz Lightyear's voice. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because like when that movie came out, there was nothing like it. You know, there really wasn't any computer animated fully length film that was like more than 5, 10, 15 minutes tops, you know? And I remember as a kid that Pixar was the coolest thing ever because like growing up I remember when Finding Nemo came out. I remember when that movie came out. I was freaking out when that movie came out. And just all of these just amazing, and it's not only that they're amazing, just remember the times you spent sitting on the couch watching them, you know, the memories you've made with friends and family and tying in with relationships. Isn't that something you want to have where you're sitting there with somebody you love that you can watch this amazing film and you both feel something from it?
Yeah. Finding Nemo was like one of my very first dates. I believe I was in like 6th or 7th grade and me and a boy like had a crush on each other. And I was like, we should go to Finding Nemo. And like, I remember everybody being like, the fish, it looks like real. And, you know, I mean, what's cool about that is like...
I was 4 when it came out. I cannot believe I remember.
You can't make a movie that, you know, looks like that, like with actual fish or, you know, because you can't make them talk and like all that shit, you know.
Just the way that they made the characters in Finding Nemo, just the way that the water moved.
I'll never forget the dad. He was so like cheery and sweet, like, you know, and
Marlin.
like you hardly even see Nemo like most of the time.
Well, because Marlin's going after to save his son, but my favorites are the sea turtles. Those are my favorite.
Oh, hell yeah.
And
Crush.
And Bubbles. Bubbles. I always love Bubbles.
Like at the very beginning, there's like that one like sea creature that is like the teacher, and he like brings like the little school in. And
the stingray.
Like, he's like, you know, like just like giving him a little lesson, and they're all like riding on top. Yeah, it was absolutely adorable and sweet, and still like really, really interesting and entertaining for adults. Like it had like a good story.
I feel that like my childhood, especially kids that were growing up in the late 90s, we had just watching these movies and just seeing these cartoons. That was just such an important part. Like I love animations, cartoons, because they're not only so playful and creative, you can do things you cannot do in real life.
Mm-hmm. I think people like forget that like that was the reason that it was created, because like we wanted to do things that we couldn't do like in real life.
Yeah, come on. When Shrek came out,
everybody was like, the shit.
Yes.
Dude, I remember like what was really neat. Yeah, people were freaking out about Shrek because like the hair on the characters would like move. Like how ridiculous is that? That
this
we
came
were
out
like,
in 2000. This is crazy.
No, it was really, really cool. I mean, we still talk about Shrek like all the time. Like me and my coworkers talk about Shrek. They're doing Shrek raves.
We're all about the artist. That is the whole purpose of this podcast, period. And you have a really valuable tool. You can share this with artists, people that are creative, someone that can enjoy this podcast and really enjoy the experience of Lost in the Groove. So, with that, let's jump back to today's episode, shall we?
Have you seen those? It's like a rave and it's like all Shrek
People
themed.
painted green. Yeah, they have mob moshes and shit. Oh, it's a lot of fun from what I've heard.
Shrek is an American treasure.
Oh, for sure. Mike Myers, hands down. Eddie Murphy,
Yeah.
hello.
Yeah, Eddie Murphy. Donkey. Yeah, I mean,
Donkey.
Shrek is just like, it's like a happy place and it's like really easy to quote and it's just like funny and everybody knows what it is. And like, yeah, Shrek is some good shit. I wanted to get a pin the tail on the donkey, but have it be like the Shrek donkey.
They make those.
Yeah, I looked and I couldn't find one.
I've seen those before. Well, that was years ago, though. They may not have. I don't know.
But I was gonna have a Shrek party for like one of my friends because like she loves Shrek, and so I was gonna buy like everything Shrek themed.
I've been to a Shrek party. Oh my god!
If you would ever want to throw me a Shrek party,
that could be arranged. It could be arranged. It's interesting how like after all of these years, because you gotta remember this is almost 20 years ago when all of these Pixar films and things coming out of DreamWorks was coming out. And even today, like we're still quoting it now, here, and they're just so memorable. I don't know. I could just remember scenes and colors and sounds. God, that's what you want out of a relationship. Like, seriously.
I went to the most recent Puss in Boots around Christmas time. Yeah. No, I haven't had any action in a long ass time.
Aww.
Fuck it.
Go fund me, Carissa. It's going to be linked below.
Go fund me.
I'm kidding.
No, I went to Puss in Boots around Christmas time and like
okay. I don't remember
never have I ever like seen anything like that. Like there was like the whole first 20 minutes of it was like an action movie. Like legit as exciting as like a freaking car chase. I was like, when did Puss in Boots become like an action movie? Like I was like,
it's a cat in boots.
Oh my god. Like it was incredible. Like
he's
I was
adorable.
Just, like, blown away. The Puss in Boots movie, that last one, like 10 out of 10. Like amazing. Like so cute. There's even this little like montage in the middle where like the cat like leaves and he like goes to like an old lady's house where she like feeds like a bunch of cats and he's gonna go like hide there. And it was like the whole movie like slowed down and like took a whole other pace and like felt like a whole other movie for like 20 minutes. And then all of a sudden you're back at like Puss in Boots, like kicking ass again. It was really incredible. I think that's why we have like no attention span now because like stuff is just like,
whoa, next thing, 2 weeks later.
I don't know. Because I was thinking to myself, like, is shit as good as Finding Nemo used to be? I don't think it's that they're not making stuff as incredible. I think it's that our expectations have just risen so incredibly high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, look, we could always look at the past for inspiration, but it's one of the things that we can use to be able to make a better future. Okay, let's take the elephant out of the room. Okay, I'm going to say this. Disney has recently went on a facade, this beautiful facade, of remaking all of their films, which, might I say, my personal opinion, they're terrible. And they're terrible in the way because they're not original. It's not where, you have an original story with an original cast. It's just the same story, just heavily extreme left liberalized. And it's
my god, the Jasmine movie, Aladdin, was wretched.
It was horrible.
Like, it was so bad, but okay, go on.
And it's sad because that's what we loved, I feel, about those creative films that, again, have come out of past 20 years, they were taking. Why do we? You know what Shrek is? In short, you know what Shrek is? Shrek is the story of a princess meeting her Prince Charming, which turns out to be a short little guy that's this like little wimpy, pathetic piece of shit.
Lord
and then
Farquaad.
Lord Farquaad. Yeah, and then you have this like ogre that's just this nasty and grimy character that's just doing his bidding because he's too fucking lazy. That's an original story. It's about a fairy tale, but you're making it like grungy and like weird and comedic, you know? That's what makes Shrek Shrek, right?
Yeah,
And it
I think what
happened
was
20 years ago.
cute 20 years ago. I think what was cute about Shrek is that Shrek didn't have any interest in the princess, really. Like
No.
he over time kind of like fell for her, but it wasn't like, "Oh, princess, like I want that." You know, like he was more
Ooh.
just kind of like
Come on,
Shrek was
bitch.
pretty
Get on my fucking
independent.
back. Let's go. Let's get the fuck out of this castle. We got this dragon coming after us. Let's go,
Yeah.
go, go. And
It was incredible. I
loved
think
it.
again there's a lot to be said about expectations. Like
Oh, yes.
I think that ties back into like the relationship thing too. Like you shouldn't expect people to have no like trash. Like, you know, you shouldn't expect people to have no baggage. Like I think that, you know, I should have never like just expected that this person's background is like totally like unscathed. You know, like that's pretty ridiculous. But it also shows me that like that's what I was looking for. You know, it was like somebody with like that's kind of what I wanted, was like somebody without a whole bunch of like stuff that they need to like tell me, you know? And I think that is unrealistic, you know? And I'm like checking myself. I'm like, "Huh. So I've been living in a reality that is not a reality." Like I'm like
Right.
I've been looking for something that isn't, you know, like
It all ties back into, as people, we constantly change. Our minds are thinking, the way things are dealt with around us. And what we expect out of relationships also change. And one of those things, and one of the, I think, pillars is not only open mindedness, but also fluid communication that comes with honesty. When you have those in relationships, because guess what? People are fed up. You know, a person that's listening to this podcast spending 42 minutes up until this point, what we're getting out of is this: a relationship is not just a fucking ring you put on a finger. La 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 la. I want to get married. This is serious. I want to have kids. This is serious. This is something that, it's a serious thing you want to do in your life. Take it seriously. You know, if you're going to put yourself out there, put yourself into a relationship, and if you care about the other person, I think that's where my head is in. I feel that's where your head is in too.
Yeah, I feel like in the past, what I was exposed to was like shallow relationships where people wouldn't be okay with like the okay, you know? And like I don't want to
The official
be
name of the episode.
oh, okay. I don't want to be in a shallow relationship where, you know, like there is no okay. You know, like now that I think about it, like I think it's better, but at
Do
the
you,
same time
do you want to elaborate
it's
on
not
that?
easy. What part of it?
Where you said that it's not easier. I want to hear your thoughts.
It's not easy. It's just it's weird. Like I wouldn't say that it like feels like bad.
Okay.
It's more just like I don't really know how to handle it. You know, like I didn't have like a complete like full out like thought of like how I want to handle this situation, because it was just like kind of like dropped on me out of nowhere. And I'm like, I've never been in this situation before. I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know how to handle it. I don't know what my next move is. Like I'm not really sure. Like I'm like in shock and kind of like baffled. Like I'm like,
You know,
oh, and that's what was hard about it, was that
yeah.
like, and I think it's a big part of like self-discovery about yourself too, like seeing how you're going to handle other people's problems. Like, and I when I'm a partner, I want to like be there for somebody like really intensely. Like I want to be best friends, and I want to like help each other with like life and feelings and stuff, the way that we do. And I just like, I don't know, like I don't want to be a person who like rejects somebody because of their past, like that's icky. Like I
I,
don't like that shit.
I wanna point out a perspective. I mentioned to you that I went to a birthday party yesterday.
Yeah, yeah,
Friend
yeah.
that
Tell me about the birthday.
a friend of mine that I know from game night, and I messaged him and I said, right now I'm on a very tight budget. I don't really have that much funds, and I openly messaged him and I told him that, and he said, it doesn't matter. He's like, don't worry, come down here, we'll get you a free drink. I went down there. I was able to get 3-hour parking for like $4, thankfully. And I was able to get a drink, like, just a regular soda. And I got a whiskey and 4 sliders. And everything cost like about $20 altogether. And I got to spend time with people that not only like pushed me to socialize, but wanted to interact with me constantly, even though we were watching the fight and when we were talking. And it opened me up to a different type of relationship and a type of environment that I'm not very familiar with, which is people that want you to be a part of their life. They want you to talk with them. They want you to hear them. And I feel something I lost for so long. Not only just with isolation, just the mentality and the way that we view each other. It's not the way that things used to be. I think it's just a moment like we do, putting our phones out. Yeah, message here and there throughout the podcast. Sorry. But just
I just
putting our
messaged you. Uh, yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like my phone like kind of pulls me away from like being connected with people. I don't know. I It's interesting like how things like still used to like get carried, like even without the internet. How much we used to like be able to still talk and have relationships and communicate with each other and still be connected even before we had the internet. Like I think people think like there was no like connection. We did not, it's like no, like I mean, we just had to choose of the people that were like close to us, I
well,
don't
I
know. I
think
mean, I was never like an adult. Like I don't know if like being lonely right now as an adult is harder than being lonely as an adult back then. Like I almost feel like people don't get close to people because they think there's so much opportunity to reach out to people, or I don't know what's going on. Some expert does.
there's always an expert, honey. There always an expert. You know how I feel is, especially for me and especially like for my generation, and it's not even a generational thing, it's just a perspective thing where we can all learn. I love technology. I use technology every single day to make my music, to make our podcast.
Yeah.
It's awesome. But something that I learned growing up and something that you learned growing up is we didn't always have our phones. We didn't always have this. And it was really nice when we could put those down, watch a football match, go out to a bar, have a good time, and just talk with one another, celebrate a birthday, celebrate a moment with one another, and have an experience with people. Because guess what? Get one life. And we got a lot of awesome people to meet. And how many chances do you get to get that?
I agree. I'm in football country.
I was talking
Yesterday,
about real football, not American football. Sorry.
no, I'm talking about American football.
Okay.
I'm in football country, and football has just like started up like full swing. And I remember that part of the reason that I didn't like Iowa is because there's so much freaking football all the time. And there's like a massive amount of people that like love football and like, I don't know, have no other passions, just football. And for me, football is not like a passionate thing because like it doesn't take any like expression, maybe. It's more just like sport. I don't know. And I mean like it
It's a
must
ma-
take passion. I
it's a
think that
math
it can be there, but like
it's a
I don't
mathematical
know.
game more than anything else. It's
Yes, it
really
is. It's absolutely
yeah.
insane. And so what happened was like I realized that like I don't like football. And I was like, "You know what? I don't want to be like a hater." And like football's not there to make people unhappy. It makes a lot of people happy.
Yeah.
So like what is it that, I was like, what can I do to make myself not dislike football? Like what can I do? And I was like kind of thinking about it for a while, and I was like, what do I not like about football? And I was like, it's boring. Like I literally sit there and just like space the fuck out because I don't know what's going on. And then I was like, okay, so figure out what's going on. Like, and then if I know what they're doing and why they're doing it, then maybe it won't be so boring. And I was like, how do I figure out what they're doing and why they're doing it? Like how do I figure it out? And so I sat there with my dad and I said, how does this work?
Oh
And
my god.
he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, how does this work? Like, what is happening? Like, I know what offense and defense is, and I know that like, it goes this direction, it goes that direction, and like blah blah blah. But like I don't know why they do what they do or like what the even purpose is or like any of it. And he was like, how do you not know the rules of football? And I was like, why would I know the rules of football, Dad? Like, why would you think that I would know that? They don't teach it in school. You didn't teach me. Nobody taught me. How on earth would I know the rules of football? And he was like, you just watch it. And I was like, you cannot know by just watching it. Like, there's no way that you know what 4th and 10 is
Well, it first
if you
so
don't know what the fuck they're doing. Like, I
well,
was like, I don't
first off,
know. So now I know how football works. Like, I sat there and learned it.
I was gonna tell you this. It really depends on the person. So, for example, you have people that they do mixed martial arts. They do MMA, they do jujitsu, they do karate, or whatever the case may be, and they watch like UFC. I'm going to give this as an example, and I'm pointing this out with football. When they look at this from a strategical approach, because they do actual mixed martial arts, they're seeing all of the different moves and patterns with these different fighters. When you have somebody that's watching football, and you're 100% right, what happens is a lot of times with people like, oh, okay, they get interested and they start like playing football and they start talking with other people. And then they start like talking about it and they start figuring out things together in a workshop. So the really cool thing about American football, especially here in the US, is where like it brings people together because all these people have this interest in this. And then all of a sudden you bring this group of friends that are coming together, watching the game, figuring out. It's kind of like the perfect way of allowing humans to interact, you know?
Because like it was organically created by humans interacting with each other.
Yeah.
Like I know you talk about like artificial intelligence and stuff, but like those aren't like organic creations.
No,
And that's a little bit concerning because like we need authenticity, like, you know, so like I hope that it doesn't go too far. But I do think that like it's football's good in my opinion for men, and it can
and
be
for
great for
women,
women. It can be, but it was created by men for men originally. And that, I mean, that's their, they connect in that kind of way, and it was an organic thing that happened in a way that men wanted to interact with each other, you know? And that's why I believe that it
social
just
clubs.
continues to go. It also, I mean, like people have just pumped money into football like crazy. But my mom comes down and sees my dad like teaching me how football works. And I said, "Mom doesn't know." And I said, "Mom, do you know how this works?" And she was like, "No." And I was like, "So like you went to all these football games and you have no idea like how to count the yards or what penalties are or like any of it?" Like, and she was like, "No, I just kind of clap when everyone else does." And I'm like,
There are, believe it or not, there are people that, especially when it comes to sports, they can just sit there and watch it. You know, like I
boring. So freaking boring to not know why anyone is doing what they're doing. Like, are you just sitting there watching people run around? Like,
well,
that's like,
yeah, I definitely like see your perspective. Like I have a very little understanding of mixed martial arts. I did a little bit of it in my young, like, elementary school and high school. But when I'm watching a fight, I can kind of understand what's going on, with the different moves and positions a little bit to a certain extent. But me just like watching, what do you call WWE or something like that, I would just be like, what is this?
well, WWE has like this like
It's a whole different other
theatrical.
world. Yeah, it's a whole other different world. But it's just, I understand where you're coming from. It's a good perspective to come at. It's like, how do you enjoy a sport, or an activity, and you don't know what's going on?
I needed to know like a motive, you know, like why this person decided to run in this direction instead of that direction, because then I can want them to run in one direction or another. And then I'm feeling something
Like
instead of
everybody else
just
is.
sitting there like, you know, like it's like I have to understand the rules of what's going on. And I think that in a way, it could continue to tie back to what we're talking about with the "oh, okay" moment, where it's like, I need the reality of the situation in order to have the actual real feelings of what's happening. Because, I knew there was something off. I knew it the night before. And I called you and I talked to you on the phone. I felt it. Like something was wrong and something was off. The reality was not the reality, you know, because I wasn't feeling something. And
Right.
that's the same as watching the game and not knowing what's going on and not feeling anything, you know? And like, I don't want to sit there like a freaking zombie. Like, that's gross to me. I mean, maybe for some people, it's nice to sit there and just zone out, and that's like relaxing, you know? But I needed to like feel it. Like I'm not going to spend my I'm a passionate person. I'm not going to spend my time like just kind of like zoning out, you know? I don't know. I've been trying to like find things that bother me and figure out ways to make them enjoyable, you know? Like the microphone falling over.
I know. Just, it's weird because when life throws you curveballs, you're like, shit, what am I going to do? And
It's
just,
funny that we use a sport as that analogy, a curveball. It's like another sport with a freaking curveball. Oh. Hi, kitty. What kitty kitty? What's your
Twixie's
week
here.
look like?
My week,
Yeah, your upcoming week. Tomorrow's Monday.
expensive.
Oh, why?
Well, I have other expenses that are coming in, but I it's really unclear of what my future is and what I want to do. What I what I'm starting to really work on is I really want to create a place for artists. I really want to create a place for people down here in South Florida, really like experimental, really cool and groovy creators and makers and doers that they can have a place to share their work in art and craft. I mean, I feel like the whole purpose of us doing American Groove, we're creating like these open conversations, talking about these things that are sometimes difficult for us to get out. And it's just nice to spend an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, just batting them down, figuring the stuff out and just seeing it from all angles. There's just so much you can learn from people and what they tell us and what you can learn when you're in a relationship with somebody.
I think because the focus is specifically directed in one area, like for you and I feel like during a podcast, our focus is very, very much on what you're saying and what I'm saying. Like, we're extremely focused. And so, like, if you can take a space and create it specifically focused on artists, then like they can, grow in that environment. But otherwise, like, if you're just trying to do your art anywhere in an unfocused like art environment, it won't get as much attention, you know?
No,
And it's like people need like direct attention, like to have things succeed.
they need time to talk. The thing is, when you sit down with a singer and songwriter, they need time to. I know, so cute. I
I
just
know
sent.
you sent me the cutest picture right now of like you and
I'm gonna post.
Trixie.
I'm gonna post it on Instagram.
Oh, I'll take a selfie then too.
Yes. I'll go ahead and I'll send it over. I think it's just something that is nice. I had to say it. All,
Selfie times.
all I wanted to just say off. I just think that it's especially with what we have available, allowing singers, songwriters, instrumentalists, creators a place to talk about the work that they're doing. It's another level of awareness, but also like a new place for them to talk, and interact with possibly new listeners, or because there's so much shit out there, honey. Like, what are people supposed to do? You beat your ass out every fucking Saturday for what? Seriously, for what?
Yeah, it's hard to know what you're supposed to focus on. Like, there's like 10 billion things available to you. And it's like, you could never actually focus in on any of it because you're trying to pay attention to so many things at once. Like, things need that individual attention. Like, let yourself focus in on something, here and there. Like, to like actually give it the attention that it needs to like succeed is kind of what I am learning right now in this conversation.
Yeah, and I think it's also just a broader approach and just again allowing all ideas. The second you start limiting thought, and you start limiting time, and you just run into all of these problems of, okay, so what else do you want me to cut out, and not do? What
Yeah,
else am I
when
not
stuff
supposed to
becomes
say?
that's all a negative, like people don't need to don't do this, don't do that, not this, not that. Like when I learned that with training a puppy, like you will never get anywhere if you just keep yelling at it about what not to do. You have to encourage them to do something different. So like giving people options, letting people know what you would prefer instead of what's happening. Like stuff like that is really really important instead of just shutting it all down and giving no opportunity for anything to be better, just pointing out how it's terrible. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. And I think like if you don't know how to handle the situation, just go ahead and tell people, I don't know what to do. And I think that people don't want to show that vulnerability of saying, I don't know what to do, you know? Like,
Yeah. And
and that it holds them back.
the thing is, like, as artists, people are afraid to open up and be where, hey, let me check this out. Let me see what I can do. Like, hey, do you know somebody that's really good for this? Yes, I know a great bass player that can, just working together. The thing about, I personally feel the way that we can be successful in our relationships, in our way as artists, in our way as being creators, is when we work together. Because in the end of the day, it's great to be alone. It is. But how far is that going to get you?
Well, I mean, like scientifically, we survive better as a group, like
Point.
that is
Great
scientifically
point.
proven. And
Yeah.
so, like, as much as like we need each other to survive, everybody knows that. And as much as anybody wants to like argue all these other things, like when it comes down to like the fact that we are, animals to an extent, like, yeah, we need each other. So you can't deny it. Like, it's important to figure out how to deal with people's okay, because you need people in your life,
Yeah.
you know?
And even though the OOKs could sometimes be difficult, not trying to put yourself in their shoes, but trying to understand where they're coming from. Be like, okay, that does make sense. It that all right. But if you just run away from situations whenever things get hot or difficult, you're right. It's very hard to make it worthwhile and positive.
To have people in your life anymore. I mean, like with family, I mean, think of all the things that you just go, oh, okay. But then, like, with somebody that you just got to know, an oh, okay is a lot more challenging. But I guess, it becomes easier to accept things the closer that you know somebody to an extent.
But like I said earlier, how much are you willing to accept? Where's the
I mean,
line?
hopefully that's the line. We still
Hopefully.
know, but like, I'm like, oh, are there more lines? Like,
Maybe.
I like to
Maybe
make
not.
jokes, and so like I couldn't really come up with a lot of jokes. Like I was like, I don't have any jokes.
No kidding, Sherlock. It's very hard to joke about this situation. It's like,
The oh, okay. Like I'm like, what joke do I make about this one? I
you know,
already did. I made a couple jokes.
you
I was
know,
like,
thinking about it, who's really good at making okay jokes? Bill Burr.
yeah.
He
He's like,
makes,
oh, okay.
he's like, oh, okay, all right. So you want to have an abortion now? Oh, I see. Okay. But you could still be 25 and single and never been in a relationship before in your life. That's fine. Oh, okay. It's weird because when we joke about it and just realize how ironic and just how many times that does come up, we have secrets. Like, we have a whole life right behind these pearly doors, just waiting to be flung open.
Yeah, I know. I think I just said all the other day, like, imagine all the things I don't know about this person yet. And then I was like, oh, okay. I was like, shit. Like, yeah, I was right.
It was like
I
Carissa.
knew.
It was like Carissa 6 months after knowing me. It was like, oh, okay.
No, I mean, like, yeah, I got to know more about you, but some of those oh, okays were things that attracted me to you. Like, I remember you came out into like the shipping area and you had said that you felt like shaky. Sorry to like blast your info, but you
Hey,
came
share my
out. I
personal
know.
information. Google
That's what
has
we
all
do.
of it. Apple has it too. Go right ahead. Take it.
I know. They're going to own our voices. eventually they'll be able to just create our
Let me
podcast with like face recognition
let me
and like
clear it so they can hear us better.
yeah, they could just recreate us after we die. Apparently, we should fill out some paperwork or something that lets
Oh, for
them not
sure.
own our faces and voices.
The
Like
blue paper, not the green one. Blue
I don't
paper,
know.
not
There's
green paper.
nothing, no protection of
No.
any kind. I feel like Apple was kind of that way too. Like I bought the Apple stuff. I had an iPad. Like I had an iPod at first, you know,
Still
and then
not safe.
then you
Still
find
not
out that
safe.
they're like stripping all the resources from other countries, and you're like, oh, okay. Like you're like, I didn't really know that's what I was getting into being an Apple customer. Like, wow. Okay. Like,
I know.
but I didn't quit the being an Apple customer, did I?
No.
No, I accepted Apple's dark crap.
It's it's interesting because like we say privacy, but we're like, what privacy?
I know the podcast isn't private,
No.
you know,
But
and
it's our space. I mean, this is our place.
we get to create it the way that we want.
Oh yeah, until we die,
Yeah.
and then they continue it their way.
That's just because weren't we talking about that the other day? Well, you were saying that they could recreate Marilyn Monroe, you know, like and make another Marilyn Monroe movie. And I was like, that's not right.
Well, they've recreated characters from the dead, such as Andy Warhol, which we've mentioned. I've talked about this on the phone with you.
With not just like an actor. Like they use the actor a little bit like
yeah, but I told you the problem was Andy Warhol, he had some interviews, but his voice wasn't recorded that much. So what they had to base off of was very little. So they had to use artificial intelligence and basically to create his voice. The way he mimicked certain letters, the way he pronounced certain things like, and again, we talk about privacy. This man has been dead for over almost 40, well, a little over 40 years. And they're doing this to his voice, and this is like what, 5 years ago, 4?
I feel like once our voices are recorded, they're recorded, like, and we can't unrecord them. Same with like photographs. Like if someone's taken a photo of me, it exists. And therefore someone can do something with it or not. I mean, it's just, the internet is the wild, wild west. A lot of it hasn't been situated yet. There aren't, as many rules as there will be, which, as like a libertarian, like the libertarian part of me thinks that that's a good thing, but it also like doesn't create a lot of protection for people. So this is like that thing where it's like, I don't want like big government, but at the same time, like I need some type of like rights and protection. But it's like, I hate the idea of someone telling me what my rights are, so it's kind of nice that it's just like all free range and there's not like a whole bunch of rules all over it. But at the same time, like it's a little risky,
It is, but it's the same way when tying back into this, when you start a new relationship, you don't know what you're walking yourself into until you start learning and figuring out what you are dealing with, who the person is, what type of person they are. And sometimes you don't like what you hear, That's the thing about meeting other, again, the word other. They're not you, We don't live in a world of people that are exactly like us. And it's kind of strange because I've met many, many people that live in that bubble where the world revolves around them. And why don't people treat them the way that they should be treating them? And why don't people talk to the way that they should be talking to them? It's like, you gotta let life be life, and let people be shitty. Because then that they're shitty.
Yeah, I do think that that's a really good point. It's an important perspective. You would never believe there is a woodpecker that is pecking on the side of the house right now. it comes up and it goes like on like the side of the house and it like pecks at the wood. Da-da-da-da. Do you hear it at all?
No. Now I can hear it because you went dead silent. That's crazy.
That's a woodpecker. Like a wild woodpecker pecking on the side of the house right now.
While I'm telling this incredible fascination is going da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da.
He's out there living life completely unaware of all this bullshit that we're talking about. Just pecking on the side of my house. I'm like, dude, there's no bugs in there. You know, they peck on the tree to like get the bugs out. And it's like, he's just pecking on the house, like just for the hell of it. I don't know. Make it a hole, you know? God.
Hey, they have their reasons, you know. They're it's I don't know. It's blah. Maybe it's just me talking for over an hour, but
It's just like really hot. So like I'm like, you know, I have less energy when it's hot outside.
No, I just feel one of the prime points and like just from this whole hour that we just been talking is relationships are hard. It's difficult to talk with people. And once you start getting over that and start being more comfortable and be comfortable with yourself, you know, if like we've been jibber jabbering for an hour, like one thing I just want to leave off is just plain and simple, being yourself, you know, and knowing that you want to be known as you, not some like fake, pretentious, you know, plastered version. Like, genuinely, who wants that?
I think there's no way to like really like feel like needed or valued or like appreciated if nobody like tells you things like that and they just kind of like keep it from you.
Oh, for
you know?
sure. You definitely need that, but you got to start somewhere. Am I right?
Oh God. I don't know. You can tell. I'm just kind of like emotionally like drained. Like I'm like,
Well, yeah,
oh
we've
my
been talking about
God.
relationships for an hour and 17 minutes, including Finding Nemo.
This is actually like the most mellow I've been
Whoa.
talking about relationships. Like, can you
Whoa.
think of like me in the past year, like whenever we would talk about like a romantic relationship, I get
It's a hot
so worked
topic.
up.
Yeah, it's hard to, because it's very emotional for me because you know this, because I haven't been in one in like ever. And I have my personal reasons, and it's just something you don't want to talk about, but it is so important because people are a part of our lives every day. You know, we're not the last people on earth just yet.
Yeah, it's sad how much some married people like absolutely hate being married.
Because again, like that's what I was saying earlier, like we live in a society now that like marriage is a serious thing. Like this is it's a serious commitment. Like you are telling somebody that you are committed to this person. You know, it's not just some paper you sign. It's the same thing like having a kid, right? We were like talking about this before. When you like,
or
say
sometimes it is just a paper you sign.
sometimes it is just a paper you sign. Yeah,
Sorry. Or don't.
or don't. Oh God, I'm so tired. It's strange though because these are serious.
Yeah, it's not just, you're right. It's not just a paper you sign. Like it's a life.
It's
It's
real.
the life that you're living every single day. If you're going to do it that way, you know? I mean, marriage has
Big
like a
if.
million different descriptions. I mean, I think a lot of different people can get married for like so many different reasons. So it's like it's not always going to be like that, like you're with that person like every freaking day and like you plan on like being with them forever. I think what's happening is that like the definition of marriage is changing, you know, like, and that, I mean, everybody's different, so everybody's marriage is different, you know.
Yeah,
But I
that
think
is
it's
true.
like marriages are even more different
I think our
than
definition
they
of
used to be.
I think our definition of relationships are changing. It's not that people
Yeah,
are
for sure.
less people are getting into relationships because more people are taking this more serious. Like our time is more limited, our resources are more limited. Just but having a good time, meeting new people still exists. And I feel like when I have those opportunities, I jump on them whenever I can. That's it. That's all I got to say.
That's all, folks.
That's all, folks. Well, it's been fun. This has been great. Been a podcast. All right. Well, listen, we love you all. You know where to find us. We're on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and Carissa, where else are we on?
Your mom.
Well, we're also on your mom, but we're on YouTube. So you can see our beautiful faces in full Technicolor. It's groovy, baby. At Lost in the Groove Pod. So with that, before I forget, Carissa, what's the best thing you can do for this podcast?
You can follow us and listen and let us know and comment and
leave a
just
review.
Keep in touch. Yeah, leave a review for us. Ooh, I would like that.
Yeah,
let me know if you like it, or if you think there's anything that we could do different.
Or something we should cover. We touched on.
Yeah, if you have any topic ideas, that could be cool.
We were talking about Marilyn Monroe recently. We have a few ideas for a few things. But anyway, we're gonna go. We're gonna stop talking. All right. Bye, everybody.